All right, Catch and Counter, episode 33. Dakota and Nibs. What's good, my boy? How we been?
Man, I'm doing love, baby. How you, man? It's
I'm
good to see
chilling,
you.
bro. I'm chilling, bro. We got no Jack this week. He will be back as always.
It's
Just to
it's
jump
thick
right.
boy hour. You
Oh,
know what I'm
dude,
saying?
you already know what it is. There hasn't been one of these in a while.
Along with too long. You know what I
Yeah, so
mean?
if you're excited, the Thick Boy Hour is back. Leave some love in the comments. Um, first topic that I think is probably what a lot of people want to hear our takes on is Canelo Alvarez signs a fight with Edgar Berlanga for September 14th. What's your initial thoughts and reactions to that one?
Man, look, my initial reaction is um, somebody call 911. I mean, look, um, I got to say this. I respect the balls on Berlanga to even take this fight at this point in his career. Do I think he could have eventually got to a point to where he could test somebody like Canelo? Yeah. I mean, I'll give him this. He's learning now, right? Like all the shit we kind of wanted to see when he was having a knockout streak, he's had to learn because he's not knocking anybody out anymore. Um, but we didn't see that growth before. He's kind of trying to learn it now. But learning it and mastering it are two totally different things, and you need to have mastered that to test Canelo. He's not ready, bro. And we have no idea what his chin looks like because he hasn't been in there with anybody that isn't scared of him.
Well, I think we know that it's good, not great, right? Because he got dropped by Cosares, right? We've seen him
Right.
drop. We have seen him
Who's
hurt.
not a knockout artist.
Right, exactly. And he's not a light puncher, but it wasn't the kind of fight where we were expecting to see him hit the deck. And that was when he was still the knockout guy. I mean, I'm looking at his box record. He had the fight with Damon Nicholson, but he dropped that guy like 6, 7 times or whatever. So I think there was still this feeling like, okay, yeah, this guy's a real puncher. And then he gets in with Cosares, and it's the first time where we see that the power doesn't just end that fight immediately. With a guy at a certain level. I think for me, my initial reaction is right. We obviously want to see Benavidez. Everyone that's in the boxing world wants to see that fight, and I think aside from Berlanga just not being like the best pick, we've seen him against Jason Quigley, against Steve Rolls, right, a couple levels down from this, have a hard time. Right, like he's had some close fights. There's been some scorecards that maybe aren't so great that went in his favor. And at the end of the day, he's not passing those tests with flying colors. So my sentiment around this fight was just sort of like, all right, well, who's asking for this? And that's not to say that it's a bad fight. Edgar's not a bad fighter. It's a tough matchup. It's just a very selective matchup.
I'm gonna say it. It's a bad fight, and the reason it's a bad fight is because at this point in Canelo's career, he needs to be fighting people that are at least considered on his level, right? Like Munguia, I didn't really love it, but most people considered Munguia a rising star that was approaching Canelo's level. Not on it,
And he
but
had
he was
had, you
getting
know, he had the Derevyanchenko fight, he had the Rosado fight, he'd had those sort of testing moments
right.
he passed those tests.
And he was, again, if not on, approaching Canelo's level, right? Like we all thought Munguia was the next. You know what I'm saying? And then Canelo proved that there are levels to this game, and I mean it was easy work for him. It was much easier than I think most of us thought it was going to be. If Munguia, who I feel is still better by a mile than Berlanga, had that hard of a time, what is Berlanga going to do, bro? You know what I'm saying? Munguia hits just as hard, and he's a better boxer. So you're going to tell me that Berlanga's going to come in there and have any kind of success against Canelo? Nah, bro. Nah, it's a shit fight. I get it. It's money. The Mexico versus Puerto Rico thing always sells. I'm going to watch it. Casual fans are going to tune in. Anybody who follows Berlanga on social media is going to tune in, right? But let's face it. This is a stay busy fight. And I say this all the time: give us what we want, bro, not what you need to line your pockets. This is just a money grab for Canelo, in my opinion.
And I think one way that I've been kind of referencing it, right, is it's a very Mayweatherian pick, right? Floyd, after the Money Mayweather era, where he took the tough fights and got himself to a certain position in the sport, like Canelo, was taking all the tough fights that we were asking for and cleared out 168 at the time outside of Benavidez, and has consistently shown that he'll take tough fights. Now he's in this part of his career, the Money Mayweather era, where he's not going to take bad fights, but he's not as concerned with what the fans are looking for or what the fans think is the tough fight or the legacy fight. He's now boxing for his own benefit and probably feels like he's earned that right. And you can make the argument that he has, but it's as long as he is a pound for pound level fighter, which he is, right? I think anybody would have him at least in your top 5-6 pound for pound right now, an all time great. Like, it's just not what people want to see, but he is sort of in that. He's in his mid-30s. He's in that elder statesman tour now, and I just don't. He's not. It's not legacy at this point. The legacy part's already done in his mind, so he's just going to do it on his terms now.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real clear. Canelo could have retired before the Bivol fight and been a Hall of Fame fighter. You know what I'm saying? And that's saying something. I mean, it's probably a couple fights before that, if we're being 100% honest with ourselves. So he probably could have retired after the Triple G fights, and nobody would have not signed their ballot for him to go into the Hall of Fame, right? But the fact that he was willing to take the fight with Bivol alone tells you he's still that guy. Like, he still feels like he's that guy. He feels like he's the guy, period. I mean, Canelo probably feels like he can win a belt at heavy, with the talent he has right now. And to be honest with you, I'd actually be intrigued to see him and Usyk fight each other. Usyk wins, but it would be interesting to see. He's probably the only heavyweight around Canelo's size I would be willing to watch him fight. But Berlanga, come on, bro. Like, Terrence Crawford could beat Edgar Berlanga. Like, and that's not a knock on Terrence Crawford.
And it's funny that you say that, because I think that ultimately that may be what the long-term vision for Canelo is. It's not David Benavidez, it's Terrence Crawford, right? Who maybe is a guy that's like a little.
They don't want anything to do with him.
I personally think that that's a fight that will happen. I think the money's going to talk on that one. And
I think they're bluffing.
I just think the money's going to talk. They may have felt that way right in the moment, but you never know what comes across your desk, right? Like, you don't know what kind of deal you're going to get for that fight if the Saudis are involved. If Terrence beats Madrimov in a couple weeks, all of those things have to happen. But I think the money's going to talk on that one. And aside from that, he's driven the two most interesting super middleweights out of the division. Dave Benavidez is a light heavyweight now. He's already beaten Vosdick. He's waiting to get the winner of Bivol and Beterbiev, and that's going to be a couple of great fucking fights. And now we see David Morrell's moving up to fight Hot Rod. So those guys are gone. The options for him now, really, at this moment, were Berlanga and Christian Mbili, who are both relatively untested. But I do think that Mbili's been more explosive in his performances.
I think Mbili's definitely the more dangerous of those two options, but I still think both of those options are like, it's like asking me, do I want pizza or tacos? Do I want heartburn or diarrhea? Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm still knocking both of them bitches down easily. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna have to deal with a little something after. You know what I mean? That's what this is. It's like, yeah, let's face it. He's gonna have to deal with a little heartburn, maybe. If he fights Berlanga, and that's about it, bro. That's about the length of the discomfort that Canelo's gonna have to deal with in the ring against Berlanga, and he's gonna get paid really nicely to do it. You might be right. I mean, let's face it. I think people want to see Terrence Crawford and Canelo so much because of because they're the most people consider them in their top 3 pound for pound.
And I'll be honest, bro, I want to see it. Like the more that I've heard that that's a fight that the Saudis are interested in making, like I want to see that. And as particularly if Canelo's not going to fight Benavidez, he's not going to go up and fight other light heavyweights at the moment. Why not take on probably the smartest fighter of your era? And each of them have their little advantages, right? Like I think Terrence is the best mind and has a little more in the tank than Canelo, but Canelo's got the size, he's got the punching power. There's so much intrigue around that fight for me, and I think ultimately Canelo's always been a smaller guy, since he's moved up from middleweight, and he wasn't the biggest middleweight either. So I think he is going to be, you look at Madrimov, that's a guy who really like is the same size as Canelo,
Yeah. I look at it like this. Would I watch it? Of course. Do I want to see it or do I need to see it? Nah, not really.
That doesn't interest you for real?
Not really, man. I mean,
really,
it'd be interesting to watch, but it's not a fight I'm interested in. You feel me? Like, it's not like I'm clamoring to see Bud fight Canelo. You know what I mean? Like, if it happens, cool. It's one of those fights where it's like it'd have been really cool to see Floyd fight Canelo now. You know what I'm saying? Or a little bit later. Kind of thing.
I think the way that I look at it is it would have been like if Floyd fought Triple G. And I think
Right.
that was a fight that got discussed. I would have been interested in seeing that. And I think that Terrence has just been such levels above guys in his own weight that I think it is intriguing to see, like, how high up does this skill set take him? Does this skill sets carry up? Because every time, since lightweight, junior welterweight, every time he moves up, he's just that much better than the second best guy. I'm interested to see him test himself in that way, and I think Canelo is the right guy to do it. And I think aside from, boxing can tend to be a circus. And I think that you always risk that. This isn't a circus because these are like the 2 best guys of their era. And I think if they can find a way that makes sense, I think it's cool, bro.
This is just a my balls are big enough to do it fight. That's what this comes down to. Is, you know what I mean? For Bud. Like, hey, look, I'm really a 147 guy. I'm going to jump up, not 1, not 2, but 3 weight classes. You know what I'm saying? Because that's essentially what he has to do, right?
But he's going to fight Madrimov at 154 first. So that is a gradual move.
Right. But what I'm saying is they want that fight yesterday, right? Like Bud's side of it anyway. Canelo's side is saying they don't want any parts of it. I don't know why. If I'm Canelo, I'm like, yeah, bring his little ass on. You know what I mean? Look what I did to the Charlo, fella.
He's smart though, bro. He's not a dummy. You know what I mean? Like, he knows that's a tough fight.
It is, right? But I look at it like this. It's Floyd 2.0 for him. And if you're Canelo, you're saying, okay, I'm much wiser, stronger, better defensively. And there's really nothing that Terrence Crawford can throw at me, that, I mean, the dude's, sparring with heavyweights from what I understand. And he's taking those punches, I mean, when was the last time you saw Canelo hurt, like really hurt? I mean, shit, talking years. I think
probably Jose Cotto.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, Triple G buzzed him, and Triple G is a killer. You know what I mean? But he was walking through those punches. So I just, I look at it like this. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, great. I'm not clamoring for it. I don't need to see it. I would watch it if it happens. And I wouldn't be disappointed if the fight happens. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not excited about that fight.
I'm a little surprised, to be honest, that there isn't more excitement around it, because I think that it's the kind of matchmaking that would be good for boxing. It's the first time that the circus might actually be like a good fight that would serve the sport and get a lot of eyes and a lot of attention, probably more than him and in light of the Spence fight. I don't know, man. I think that it's I think that could be a fun time, bro.
Imagine if Bud got another guy at 168 and like destroyed him, like a contender or like a top 5 guy, right? Beats
Or what if
him.
they do it at 160? I'm just being theoretical. What if they just do the fight at 160?
I don't think Canelo's getting down to 160, bro. It's just in my opinion. Maybe 165. He'll do it at 165, like a catch weight kind of situation. But I don't think Canelo has it in him to get down to 160 again. I think he's struggling to make the 168. That's a thick boy. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? So, pause. But, I think that it would be much easier for, Bud to get up to the 168 level, beat somebody decent. Then you get even more intrigue because it's like, well, hold on, wait a minute now. Bud might be for real, for real. This isn't just a spectacle, for the hardcores. You can make this shit tomorrow and have it in my backyard, and everybody and their mama that, has ever even seen a boxing glove will say it's the greatest shit since sliced bread, though. So, at the end of the day, it'll do great things for boxing, just numbers wise. Casual fans are going to go crazy over it. You can hold it pretty much at any venue. It doesn't matter. You can hold this at the Garden. You can hold this in Vegas. You can have it down there in Dallas. You know what I mean? So you can do it pretty much anywhere you want, and it's going to sell. You muted, my guy.
Classic. My bad. That was actually a great tangent to go on because I think that, in my opinion, even if they're not saying it out loud, I just feel like they're moving in a way where that's the fight that Team Canelo is ultimately going to find themselves. And there's no other fight in boxing where the money's going to talk that good. And I personally think it's an intriguing matchup. The other fight that got announced for that card, for the Canelo Berlanga card, and I have to say allegedly before I say this fight, because this was a fight that got announced, got put on every major website in boxing. It was on the Barclays Center website with no ticket link. Erislandy, Lara, and Danny Garcia. The great, mysterious non-promotion that just stopped getting mentioned. But here we are. We have that matchup about 10 months later. What do you think of this one?
I'm actually excited about this fight. Like, you know what I'm saying? To me, this is the best fight on the card to watch. But I'll say that because I want to see what Garcia has. I mean, Garcia hasn't fought in 2 years. Erislandy, I think he's had a year off, but it's not again his problem. You know what I'm saying?
He fought recently. Lara fought recently.
Yeah. Was it? I thought it was like a year. I thought it was 23. Was it?
He fought on one of the, I believe it was on one of these prime pay-per-view undercards,
Okay.
and got like a second, third round knockout.
Got you. That makes it even better for him. I think Lara's been the more active of the two. I think we can not dispute that. But it'd be cool to see what Garcia has to do now. His OnlyFans been pampering him too damn much. I don't know, but it'd be good to see what he's got back. I was always a fan of his. Erislandy Lara, bro. He's kind of like he's like our version of Bernard Hopkins, right? Like it feels like this dude can fight for a long. It feels like,
bro, it's hilarious because I'm like such an Erislandy Lara stan, and like. And here's really the reason, bro. It's not because I think he's the best or the most exciting or any of these things. It's the longevity, dude. How many guys are in the game fighting at this level for, I mean, we're pushing 20 years, bro. And he's really been like at the top of his game. And by the way, just so I'm not talking out of my ass, he did fight March 30th and he knocked out Michael Zarafa in the second round. Michael Zarafa was a decent contender.
That's right. Yeah, that's
and
right.
He's been, he's had the Paul Williams decision. The Canelo fight was such a flip a coin fight, which of course he loses the close decision. He's had wins over top guys his whole career, and he's never really gotten his flowers. And now, late in his career, he's 41 years old, and he's still arguably the best middleweight going. And it doesn't seem like anyone really cares. And I think that that's unfortunate because he's been, in terms of longevity in terms of quality of opposition and performances. He's been one of the best fighters of the last at least decade.
How do you see this fight going?
I personally think that Lara is going to dominate it. And I think him just being a naturally bigger guy and Danny always kind of having those heavy feet, bro. You got to come to Danny for Danny to get his offense off. And I just don't think Lara is going to give him those kinds of opportunities. And it's going to force Danny to do the thing that he doesn't really like to do.
I mean, that's you know what I mean? It's pretty much exactly what I was going to say. I think Lara has too many tools in his arsenal. Danny Garcia, I wouldn't say he's one-dimensional, but he's kind of like a two-dimensional guy. He does two things.
They're great
really,
dimensions.
really well.
Yeah, they're great dimensions, but there's just certain things like kind of like George Kambosos. He's like a better George Kambosos, where it's like he's a great counterpuncher. If you come to him, he's got power, but he's not going to press the fight and initiate the offense in that kind of way for the most part.
He's slick. He's got a respectable defense. He's got an offensive defense, which is, it's rare to see nowadays. Usually you see guys that are either all offense or all defense, right? To have an offensively defensive-minded guy, that's why he was as successful as he was. And he can stand in a pocket with somebody who's willing to trade with him and get his shit off more than they are in most fights, right? The problem with Danny Garcia is he's usually the most talented person in the ring, right? When he's run into other guys that are just as talented or more, he doesn't really adjust that well, to what they're bringing to the table. I think Erislandy Lara is probably, the epitome of adjustment, being able to adjust on the fly, and he's not only that, he's going into the ring the more talented fighter. You know what I mean? Because he's got basically, every tool you can want. I mean, if you like baseball, he's a 5-tool guy. You know what I mean?
And aside from telling me his age and admittedly the competition in the last couple of years has not been fantastic. Like, show me the slippage, show me the age, show me where he's not I think he's as good as he's ever been. I mean, it's been surprising to see him get so many knockouts at this point in his career, but I think he's just sitting down on his shots more, and maybe he's not cutting as much weight. It's been impressive.
Hey, look, we talk about this all the time, right? Guys who fight a lot closer to the weight they walk around at are usually way more successful for a longer period of time and are able to stay in this game a lot longer because they're not having to take that many years off of their body. Like, weight cuts take years off of people, bro. Like, when you're constantly having to do that shit, and when you can fight at a high level close to your weight, guess what? The results are better. Plus, I mean, shit, have you seen his wife? Shit, she'll keep me young for a long time. You understand me? But, I'm not going to, get off of that. But look, the boy is blessed. Plus, again, when you just got natural talent, bro, it is. Garcia's last fight was what, 22?
Yeah, Bourbon and Boxing is right. Jose Benavidez was his last fight, and then, if I'm not mistaken, before that, his last fight was Errol Spence. So we've seen Danny Garcia in the ring probably once in the last 4 years, which is a long time. And that whole generation of PBC fighters has been
what, 21, 20?
Yeah, I think it was winter of 2020, and that whole generation of PBC guys has been chronically inactive, really, for the last 5 years.
I mean, look, again, to me, it's like it's almost like the Keith Thurman thing. Like, every now and again, he pops up and has a fight. Are you still a pro boxer? Are you just a guy who's just trying to make money every now and again? You know what I mean? Like, I kind of feel like Danny Garcia is only fighting because he needs the money, So
tough fight to take for just needing the money, though,
bro. But I think because of what he does well, and I think Lara has been actually a little bit more active as far as trying to get knockouts lately. I mean, 4 of his last 5 wins, right? Knockouts. So maybe we do get a little bit of a war. Maybe he's willing to stand and trade with Danny a little bit. And shit, my money's still on Lara.
Bourbon of Boxing says, does Nibs have on an Al Bundy Polk High jersey?
You damn right I do. You
Hell
damn
yeah,
right
dude.
I do. 4 touchdowns, high school champion. Yeah, state championship. So that's a Chi-Town legend, by the way. Everybody who understands the assignment. Al Bundy. Yeah.
What do you think it's going to take for Lara to get his flowers? Because I can't imagine, even if he had as long of a career as Bernard Hopkins, he's only got 8-9 years left. Like, what's it going to take for people to really give this guy credit? Because I feel like by the time it's all said and done, you're going to look at that body of work, and it's going to be a legendary career.
He needs a big win against a big name, right? Or he needs that. He needs the Mayweather Pacquiao. He needs the B hop and pick any of his opponents. Really, he needs one of those kind of fights. He needs a legacy fight. He needs somebody bigger than Danny Garcia. Like, you know what I'm saying? Maybe a Bud. Maybe he needs a Terrence Crawford. Maybe he needs to fight a Canelo again. You know what I'm saying? And then have like either an all-out, give us one of the best fights we've ever seen in our entire lives, right? That'll be replayed over and over and over again, or a dominating win or a knockout win against somebody he had no business beat. You know what I mean? Like, and as unfair as that might be to him, considering what he's done in his career, you know what I mean? I don't know if he is necessarily a shoe-in for the Hall of Fame, but if he were to unify belts at the division, something like that, right? Like, he needs to do something where there's really no doubt Erislandy Lara was the man at some point in his division.
And that at this point, that's going to require that he fight Janibek. I think Hamza Shiraz from the UK is a big, tall, dangerous middleweight. If he was able to beat that guy, I mean, you got to start putting him in the. I would say you'd have to start putting him in the pound for pound conversation again. And it just seems like he's one quality win, one big moment away from being back in that discussion. But it also, when you get to that age, he's also one loss away from being shelved. And I think it's a wild thing for him to be navigating.
And again, so that that's why he's got to be probably a little bit picky about who he's fighting, right? I mean,
got to shout out my really guy, bro.
It's good with you, baby. Yeah. I mean, nobody really does want that fight, bro. I agree with you. But yeah, I mean, let's put it this way, I would say if Erislandy Lara can somehow unify the belts at his division, wrap it up, he could retire as soon as the fight's over, right off into the sunset, no questions.
And one of the greatest Cuban fighters of all time, to be honest.
Period.
There's a fight this weekend that I'm not sure how to feel about. I'm sure it's going to be action packed, but Joyce and Derek Chisora, we got 2 older guys who frankly have just taken some really bad beatings in the last couple of years. And even the marketing around the fight is like, the loser goes home kind of deal. And it's like, that's definitely true. And I think that there's potential, particularly with Chisora, where we're getting into a territory of playing with guys' health a little bit. Again, it's a fun fight, but it does make me a little nervous.
This is the the uncle who still thinks he's got it fight, right? Like, Derek Chisora should have been retired a long time ago. In my opinion, that's just me. Are there some guys he could still give some quality rounds to? Probably. Joyce is like, when Joyce got knocked out in his 2 most recent fights, it was kind of like watching your dad get his ass whooped for the you know what I'm saying? Like, oh no, like, hey, we thought you were unbeatable, you were this, and now you just got your ass whooped. Man, go sit down somewhere. Don't tell me what to do. So it's like that versus the uncle who still thinks he's got it, who really used to have it uh, for a minute, and now he still thinks he can whoop everybody's ass, or goes around telling everybody he was, king of the world, So, me personally, I have zero interest in watching that fight. I think George, if you're asking for my opinion, I think Georgios probably wins the fight. Um, I don't know if it necessarily does anything to help him get back on track. I think he'll have to get back in there with somebody again, more serious, more towards, the top 10 of the division before, I can really, say one way or the other. It'll be good to see him get back on track if he does win. If Derek Chisora wins, they should both retire. Because it's not going to get any better for Derek Chisora.
What a great moment for Chisora to call it, and
right.
At that point, there would really be no point in Joyce continuing, truly, for his health.
Period. Let's be really clear. And I've said this before. Joyce mails his punches in. His one thing that he had was he hits really hard and he had a granite chin, or we all thought he did. And then he fought Big Bang.
And he was a volume puncher. That was the thing too, is the volume punching and the engine that he had in his offense, against Joe Parker, who's had a lot of success since that fight. He just looked like a guy. It's like, damn, if he's got this engine every night, he's a handful. And whatever it was, if it was age, if it was just Zhilei Zhang hit him with a fucking bomb and he just wasn't ever the same after that, and he was 39 when it happened, there's a lot of different things that could happen, but he's not that guy anymore.
Here's the thing. I actually think that Parker's success is actually helping Joe Joyce, because it's like, yeah, you got knocked out twice by Zhang, but let's face it, Zhang is knocking just about everybody out. I mean, we saw what he did to, to Wilder. I mean, a faded Wilder, a damaged Wilder, but, still one of the scariest punchers in the sport, right? I think even now people are still kind of weary of Wilder's right hand. We just have a formula to beat him now, right? Joe Joyce, it's like, well, I'm not Zhang, so I have to find a different way to beat you. I think the way that he demolished Joseph Parker is actually going to give people pause to write him off, because look what Joseph Parker has been doing since. So I think, to be honest with you, the only reason really to, a lot of people's interest in him is because of how well that Joseph Parker win is aging.
Well, and let's remember, he also took a lot of punishment in that fight. That was a grueling fight, and Joyce took a lot of shots in that fight. And you never know, even when you win, you never know how someone reacts to, after the fact. Jarrett Hurd was never the same after the Lara fight. Even though he won, he took an insane amount of punishment in that fight and just wasn't really the same after that.
Yeah, Jarrett Hurd is my goodness. That's a whole different story. I could go on a whole show about that. But you're right. I mean, there was a certain mystique around Joe Joyce, right? Then he gets in with Zhang twice, and it's, two devastating losses, right? Not just, hey, I went some rounds, got tired at the end, nah, bro. Zhang was never in any trouble against you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the point. You were the A side both times, even after the loss. You were still the A side, and you got demolished. And that's the thing. When everyone's no longer scared of the boogeyman, he loses his effect on people. It's just like, again, it's the Deontay Wilder effect. No one's no longer scared or as scared of you as they once were. So, now they're turning their lights off and getting into bed with the closet door open. Like, nobody's scared of the boogeyman anymore, bro. And I think Joe Joyce is probably, again, hopefully he gets back on track and gets a win over Chisora. If he loses, I think both of them call it quits right off into the sunset.
Well, and listen, bro, I wasn't aware of this, but Chisora's had a win since the third Fury fight. He has a decision win over Gerald Washington. In the last couple of years, he has beaten Kubrat Pulev. He beat Arthur Szpilka. But largely what we've seen is Derek Chisora taking on the absolute best fighters of his era. And you would think at a certain point that starts to add up and accumulate. And, when he fought Fury that third time, he just looked so slow to me, man. I mean, it's hard to imagine, what he's going to be able to do at a certain level, but he's also shown he's a guy who always was willing to fight anybody, anytime, anywhere. And if you don't show up on your game, he does find ways to win. If there's anything that makes the fight interesting, I think it's that.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked it up, and you're right. I was looking up his box rec because when you said that, and okay, let me. So for people who might think I'm just shitting on Derek Chisora, right? I think he should have retired, but not necessarily because he's a trash fighter. I love the fact that's right. 4 touchdowns, 1 game, Chi-Town legend. All right, back on track. Don't get me started on Al Bundy. It's a thing. So, what was I saying? Oh yeah. So look, you have to respect what Derek Chisora has done. To your point, he's fought everybody. He's never been afraid to fight anybody, and he's never just come in just to get his check. Every time he's come to fight, he's come to fight. He's one of those guys, right, where it's, yeah, that's a really good name on my resume, but you still have to beat him. Even though he's coming in knowing what the assignment is, he still wants to win. He still wants to get respect on his name. He's not just going to lay down and be a punching bag. You still have to beat Derek Chisora, right? And that's what you got to respect about a guy like that. He's going to fight all the time. I think he's one of those guys where somebody needs to save him from himself, because he is a guy that can beat one of these, lower tier B+ fighters. Then he gets his confidence back up, gets back in there, one of these A-level fighters, and then they just beat up on him for 10 to 12 rounds because he's got, balls and heart and enough talent to carry him through, to the next fight.
Oh, this is a guy that won rounds. This is a guy that won rounds against Usyk and Joe Parker. You know what I mean? And in the last couple of years, won rounds against those guys. Won enough rounds in the first fight against Parker that they ran it back. So he's been a guy who's been competitive at the top level, even recently. But it just seems like cumulatively over the years, he's like hit that wall of like, this is how much punishment you can take in a career.
And we saw that against Fury in his last fight, right? Like with Fury. It looked like he got extremely older in that fight. It was like, shit. Like, I thought you would at least be somewhat and I get it. At the time, we all figured Fury was the best thing since sliced bread in the heavyweight division. There are a lot of people who still think he's the best heavyweight, even after the fight with Usyk, right? So losing to Fury, nobody's going to give you shit about that. You know what I mean? We just expected you to look a little bit better, bro. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting. I guess I'll say this. If Chisora wins, which I don't think he will, but if he wins, then this is his last ride. He gets one more crack at whatever it is he wants. He's earned a chance to go give him somebody, right? Maybe he fights Usyk, maybe he fights Fury, maybe he fights, Joshua, whoever, right? Give him one more crack at big money or trinket, and then we'll see what that does. If Joyce wins, hey, at least we know he's back on track, gets his confidence back. Maybe he can get back on track, depending on how he wins, too. Like, I would need Joe Joyce to demolish Derek Chisora for me to start endorsing him again. Like, this can't be a life or death fight for Joe Joyce.
I think we agree on that, bro. The other big fight that's coming this weekend is Claressa Shields is moving up to 175 pounds. She's fighting a fighter named Vanessa Lepage-Joanisse. There's 3 belts on the line. It's not an opponent that I'm dying to see, but it's also, she's a fighter that sort of has limited options in her weight neighborhood. So why not move up and weight and get a couple belts while you're at it? It is how I see it.
I mean, I kind of talked about this a little bit with Felix and Ray on the shop, and it's with Claressa. I feel like at this point we're just saying whoever she hasn't fought yet, let's find them. Like, is there somebody she hasn't fought with a belt? let her fight them. Like, and I think this is what that is. Like, and I think she's doing this for the spectacle of it. I kind of feel like she's in this part of her career where she has to do just about anything she can to get big money for her fights, to get attention to the sport. I mean, you've seen her lately. She's become a little bit more skinny, as far as fleshy, I should say, with the attire she's been wearing. She's been a little bit more feminine, I guess you could say, in the things that the way she's been moving. Maybe that's to get, she's been showing the cheeks, trying to get attention, in the weigh-ins and things like that. I think this is just another, I wouldn't say it's a clown show, but I just think it's like, this is a spectacle, bro. Like, let's face it, she's so much better than everybody else at her weight, at her size, that she's got to fight this heavyweight person for people to even be interested. Because, fuck it, who else is she going to fight, bro? Like, around her weight class that is going to be competitive. And she doesn't have knockout power, you know what I mean? So it's like you're not going to see her stop anybody.
Right, and I think that's why she's moving up in weight. She's moving up in weight because there's some world titles on the line, and we were talking about our women's pound for pound list the other day. We made the choice to take Savannah Marshall off of that list just because of inactivity. A rematch with Savannah Marshall would be super interesting, but that's just not a fight that's on the table right now. I think a rematch with Franchon, I don't know how interested I am in seeing that, but it's a fight that would make sense because Franchon's a world champion, and outside of that, the other interesting opponent would be Shadasia Grain, but Shadasia has some repairing to do, some maintenance to do on her standing as a contender, and she's in that process now. But I think it's going to take another couple of wins.
I mean, Shadasia would be a fresh face, so I mean, that might be welcome. I don't think she's ready. You know what I mean? I'll say this though, Claressa, I think it is going to get to a point to where she's going to be fighting the same girl as 3-4 times. You know what I mean? Because there's really nobody else. I mean, how many times do I need to see her beat Franchon? I mean, I'm sorry, all due respect to Franchon, I don't think she's on her level. Savannah Marshall probably has the best opportunity, in my opinion, to beat her as far as skill set is concerned.
The other one would have been Hannah Gabriels, who she fought earlier in her career, who actually dropped her, and that was a very close fight. And of course, they went to do the rematch, and Hannah Gabriels tested positive for some substance. I'm not sure what it was, but the fight was ultimately canceled. So even in that instance where she's trying to make an actually interesting fight, it didn't work out, unfortunately.
I mean, I'll say this. I don't know much about her opponent. I did look her up. I think she's 7-1. Her one loss, though, was a knockout, to somebody who's not on anybody's level, really. She's feather-fisted as well. I think she's got 2 stoppages in her 7 wins. I don't think she's any threat to Claressa pretty much at all. We've all seen what Claressa can do, skill-wise. Now she's a bigger version of that. And she actually looks amazing. Like, I don't know if you've seen her, like her weigh-in photos or her workout video. She looks really good at that weight. It's not like she looks fat. She doesn't look, soft. She looks like she's getting ready to go in there and do some work. So, God bless. I hope they got a stretch in the back room.
I think ultimately for her, what it's going to take is somebody at welterweight, junior middleweight, moving up in weight and becoming an interesting, viable opponent for her. There's going to have to be somebody at a slightly lower weight that's electrifying enough that that's a fight and is big enough that that's like a fight you could realistically make. Like Baumgartner, that's not particularly realistic. But, when we talk about I don't think she would do it, but someone like Natasha Jonas, who fights, a 154-pound champion, has moved up a couple weight classes. Somebody like that, it wouldn't be Amanda Serrano, but Amanda fights at, whatever weight the fight is at. There has to be a
Yeah,
fighter like that.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
To that point, I was going to actually ask you, at this point, do you think she has to pull a Serrano, right? Do you think that she has to be able to get down lower? And how low do you really think Claressa could get and still be effective?
Yeah, I can't imagine her getting below 154. Like, I don't think that would be an option at all. She holds middleweight belts currently, so in theory, she should be able to get down to 160. I can't imagine she could ever fight at welterweight, though.
I think that she could maybe do a catch weight at 150 if she really, really wanted. Like, if there was like a huge super fight.
I mean, but now this fight's at 175. Then she's having to come down 25 pounds after that. Even Amanda hasn't had to come down 25 pounds. She comes down, 9 pounds, 15 pounds. 25 pounds is a lot.
I think Amanda could do it. You know what I mean? Like, there's really nothing I would put against her pretty much at this point. I mean, she's fought 3 different weight classes in a matter of months. But I'll say this: I think that Claressa is just a naturally bigger person too, right? Like, it's not like Claressa's 5'5" and 175. Like, 175 looks good on Claressa Shields. You know what I'm saying? So I think for the right fight and the right amount of money, I think she could do 150. I think that would be the limit, like absolute limit, if the fight were big enough. But I agree with you. I think to be honest with you, I don't see her getting below 160 again, for a competitive fight. I think if she gets down to 154, I think it'd take her a long ass time, and she'd be drained as fuck. We wouldn't get the best Claressa Shields, and that might actually give another girl an opportunity, to come in and actually do some things for her. But yeah, I think for the right amount of money, maybe Chantel Cameron up at 150, I'd watch that. You know what I mean? And that'd be an interesting fight. But again, you're talking about 175. She'd have to lose, like you said, 25 pounds just to get down there. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going to be next for her. I think that it's going to take big fights getting made at some lower weights and ultimately a star emerging. Like it would be like a Terrence and a Canelo. It would have to be that kind of a matchup, I think, for Claressa to get a truly interesting opponent outside of Shadejah. But I do think that Shadejah is a fight or two away from being a legitimate opponent for Claressa, in light of what her options are. So hopefully that's something we do get to see.
Michaela Mayer is a taller girl. Could you ever see her putting on enough weight to give?
She kind of has the frame for it. I mean, she fought Jonas at welterweight. She's got a frame to hold it. She's like 5'8", 5'9". She's got pretty broad shoulders. I think realistically, it might be tough. I mean, she was fighting at 130. I'm not
sure. I'm not saying 175, but if you could get a Michaela Mayer on a hot streak, let's say she wins 3 fights in a row, gets a belt again, maybe that'd be a catch weight at 150 because it's a name, right? It'd be
sure. And that's the kind of fights you're going to need, because I think, especially at like 168, where you have like a top 5 that's probably obvious, and then the talent drop off is just so big, that I think that would ultimately be an interesting fight.
Would you? And I know this was floated around, I think last year, but she kind of priced herself out. Plus, she wanted the weight to be too low. A crossover fight with her and Christina Cyborg from the MMA world. I think Cyborg fights at 145, which is big for MMA. That's I think their biggest division, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's 145. I don't know enough about MMA. Maybe you guys can tell me in the comments. But she wanted Claressa to come down to 145. That's not happening. Claressa said, nah, if you come into boxing, you got to come up to me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to come down to you. If Christina Cyborg could get up to 155, 150, would that be a fight you'd be interested in as far as a spectacle for the sport?
I think in general, the MMA crossover fights are just not interesting to me. I think they're basically, what's going to happen for the most part. There's a couple of outlier instances, but when you look at, their skill set as boxers, because Cyborg's had a couple boxing fights, it would get attention, but me as a boxing guy, that doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably be much more. I really wouldn't want to see that in MMA either, because I think they're both too good at their individual things for either person to come in and have a chance. And Cyborg is going to get her ass whooped in boxing. Claressa would get worked in MMA, right? Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, I agree with you there. But it's one of those problems you want to have, I guess, in boxing. Like, you're so good that you can fight whoever you want, but now it's like, what do as a boxer, you want to prove you're better than, because you've already beaten these people. So it's like, well, what do you do next, right? I guess it's a good problem for Claressa to have, bro, because she could fight Savannah Marshall again. She could fight any of these other girls and get a paycheck, but she wants to prove to everybody that she is the GOAT.
Well, we did an update of our pound for pound list this week. I encourage everyone to head to our website, itrboxing.com. Check out those updates. We got a new top 10 pound for pound, both men and women's, that we put a decent amount of time into. Nibs, you got any other topics you want to get into this week, my brother?
Yeah, man. Speaking of, just to kind of, to touch on it, since we were just talking about them, Claressa Shields is number one in our female pound for pound list. We're not going to give you all the business because you need to go to the website and check it out. But we got her, and we were talking about her, Amanda Serrano. We got her number 3. If you want to see, where we have everybody else ranked, go check it out. And as far as the fellas is concerned, again, go check it out and see for yourself. I want to get into a debate. Our esteemed colleague here at ITR has requested that we settle a long-standing debate between the two cities, Chicago and New York. Who has the better pizza? I don't think it's a competition, but we have to get into this. Who has the better? Let's not even get into whole pies.
This is round 12 on this argument right here. This is round 12 on this argument.
Yes, it is. The disrespect that's come my way, by the way, calling my pizza a casserole. Woo! All right. Who has the better slice of pizza and why? Dakota, New York. Go ahead, man.
This is my closing arguments on what has been a 2-year debate between us. When people came to this country from Italy, where was their first stop, brother? Ellis Island, New York City, baby. They got up off them boats. They got into this great city and started cranking out the best pizzas this country has ever fucking seen. And to this day, we got the best crust. We got the OG sauce. We got it all, bro. And it doesn't matter what borough you go to, Long Island, Rockland, any of the 5. You're getting a good slice, dude. You're getting a good slice. There's just no way around it. It's pizza the way it's supposed to be. You can pick it up and hold it. You can fucking walk around with it. And it's a beautiful thing, baby. And I got no problem with the casserole, but it's just not the same.
All right. I mean, you said all that to say, you guys have a flat piece of bread with some cheese on it. Okay, that's great. It takes about like 4 or 5 of those goddamn things to stop somebody from being hungry, by the way. I just want to point that out. In all due respect to the dollar slice, which I think is like now a $2 slice nowadays. It's not even, can't even get the dollar slice.
There's still a dollar slice.
Is there? Oh, wow. Okay. All right. I'm gonna have to come out there and you're gonna have to show me that.
You come to my city, I got you on a dollar slice, but we won't be getting dollar slices. We'll be getting classy slices.
Chicago style pizza is better for this reason alone. You need one slice of pizza. That's it. You're done. You're full. It's a meal. It gives you the nourishment that you need. It's got all the ingredients, baby. It's like, you know, it's like mom's home cooking. You can't just go on any corner and get it. You gotta go someplace to get your piece of pie. You know what I'm saying? You know what? New York, they've cheapened the pizza experience because you can go to any walk up. Yeah, let me get a slice. Here's $1. Go on about your business. You know, it's cheap. Anybody can do a New York slice of pizza. You got to go to one place to get to New York, to get to Chicago pizza, baby. You got to go to the place, eat the pizza at that place. It's an experience. It's savored. It's loved. It's cherished. It's not cheapened like a whore. Like, I'm just gonna take this and walk around with it and love it. No. I gotta take this home. This is wifey. You know what I'm saying? I gotta sit down with this. I gotta get my napkin and all that. Look, this is an experience, baby. Chicago style pizza, hands down, every time.
While I respect those closing arguments, I'm having a hard time processing that you just called my city's pizza a 2-bit whore. But you know, I'm just trying to take that in for a second. Hell of closing arguments. I think at some point we should make a poll of the ITR boxing fans. Who's got the za, bro? Who's got the za? That's what I'm saying. Bourbon and boxing. We're talking pizza. And listen, I'm not dissing Chicago pizza. We're talking about the top of the top of the top. I mean, come on, bro. It's almost not even the same food.
So here's what I can say, and I will say this: of the flat style pizzas, because I do think people do get it fucked up that we're comparing, you know, the traditional New York slice with the Chicago deep dish, and people don't understand. New York does make a deep dish pizza. Chicago does make a flat pizza, right? But we're known for those two things, so that's why we're comparing those two. We're not saying that tit for tat. Like, let's be clear. The Chicago style thin pizza, I love it. I grew up on it. But New York does have a better thin style pizza than we do. We shit all over New York's deep dish pizza, though. Like New York's deep dish pizza, I don't know what you guys were doing. It's basically
I've never
like
seen
pizza.
a deep dish pizza in this city in my life.
Bro, what are you talking about? You guys got the what's it? The Sicilian?
Yeah, Sicilian slice.
That's like a deep dish pizza.
You're bugging, bro. No,
but it's basically like Pizza Hut. It's not even on the same level.
A Sicilian slice is so durable. The durability of a good Sicilian slice. Oh my god, a corner. Come on, bro. We're walking and talking.
And our Sicilian is still shitting on yours. Like, I just want to point that out because we do this. We do the pie pizza. Look, like I said, I've already Weedy. I appreciate you, bro. Then Crush Chicago is slept on. It is. It's and that's a piece that you can walk around with. But I'm here to tell you, the deep dish Chicago pizza, it slays everybody. It slays them because you got to respect that pizza. You can't just whore it around. You can't just walk around with this on the streets. What's wrong with you? No.
Yeah, we do fold pizza though. We do fold pizza.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's what you do to whores. You fold them up and twist them up and do all kind of nasty things to them.
No. I think you've misconstrued. A New York slice has the ability to be casual. It has the ability to be mobile. It has the ability to be versatile, bro. If you want to sit down, listen, we could sit down. We could have a couple of the best slices of our life. We could catch up for 2 hours. But you got somewhere to be? Listen, we could hop up. I'll fold that bitch in half and we'll keep it moving. And that's we're people on the move, bro. We got to be ready to keep it pushing at any second.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I appreciate the fact that you feel that your pizza's the best, and as you should. You know, it's just like, you know, everybody in this sport of boxing feels like they're the man, they're the champ. They've done the road work. They've done what they needed to do to be the best of the best. But when you have a slice of pizza that can literally put everybody to sleep, give it to the guy. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm just saying. You were bobbing when you should have been weaving. We won. It's okay. It's okay.
A spirited debate, as it always is, my friend. I actually think this would be a great topic to close on. What are your thoughts on the WBA wanting to make a title fight for Jake Paul versus Chavez Jr., disgrace to the sport? Yeah, I think that's a fair description. I mean, there's nothing that Chavez Jr. certainly has done to earn that position, and Jake Paul has yet to fight an active boxer his weight. So it's two guys that are not deserving of a title shot in any way. I know cruiserweight's thin, but there's plenty of hard-working, quality fighters that deserve a shot over those guys, and that's one that's for the sanctioning fees, baby. So, I hope that's not something that gets made for a title. I have no issue with that fight getting made, but I hope that there isn't championship aspirations on the line for that one, because that would be a shame.
Even mentioning Jake Paul's name in a legitimate title fight is blasphemy at this point. Period. I really do hope that all of the casual fans, all of the people who are the YouTube and social media lovers that absolutely love everything Jake Paul does, him fighting anyone, I don't care if it's Chavez, I don't care if he's fighting a legitimate cruiserweight champion, the disrespect that comes with even mentioning that is outrageous, because you have guys who've put in blood, sweat, and tears their entire careers, who've earned the right to even get a shot at a title, who are not getting them right now. And the fact that Jake Paul gets it just because he's Jake Paul and he's beaten absolutely no one of circumstance. You know what I mean? Chavez Jr., it's less disrespectful because he once was a very legitimate champion at one point. I'll give him that. But let's face it. He hasn't looked like that in a very long time. Now, I get, his first fight back, he's had some demons he's had to deal with. So I'm not going to hold his first fight back against him. But we all saw that fight. It was not good. He did not look good at all. So I'm with you. If you want to make that fight for fans, you want to make that fight for money, you want to, make that fight just because, okay, great. And
I have no issue with that part of it. I think when we start putting world titles on the line, and world titles can just become a prop at a fight that makes money, I just think that does a lot of damage to the sport when you got guys like Zordo Ramirez and Chris Billum-Smith, who just beat Richard Riakporhe. You got Jai Opataya. There's like a decent little batch of cruiserweights right now, and it just would be such a shame if those were the two guys fighting for a world title when there's probably, 25 other guys that deserve it more.
That'd be the equivalent of Canelo going to the UFC and fighting the guy for a world title his first fight out. You mean to tell me you're going to skip everybody else just because this guy is Canelo and he's going to get in there and he's going to fight for the championship, right away, guy who has absolutely no disciplines at all as far as MMA is concerned other than boxing, and you're going to give him, like, as much as I would understand the business model of that, right, is going to make you a shit ton of money. When Floyd had his fight with Conor, right, as big a spectacle as that was, Conor didn't have the chance to come over here and win a title. You know what I mean? It's a fight for money, and we get that. But imagine if he'd have come over here and there'd have been a belt on the line. Like, are you fucking kidding me? You know what I mean? Like, the belts used to mean something. And if you're gonna give Jake Paul a title fight at this point in his career, that will absolutely make it very clear that these belts can be bought, that they're worthless, and anybody who's currently in boxing, as a serious boxer, should give two shits about that belt wrapped around their waist.
I think that's a great point, right? It kind of kills the credibility of them. And, we already know from, there was a documentary about it. There was an FBI investigation into the IBF in the 90s and early 2000s that found that Don King was giving money to the IBF to have his guys ranked. And sometimes things are done in this sport that make you wonder if something like that is still happening, is all I'm going to say.
I mean, look, I'm not going to say that, the pay for play is still in place, but there are definitely fights where you wonder, right?
And not for nothing, take a look at any of the WBA rankings right now and tell me if they make sense.
Bro, I mean, look, we all know the sanctioning bodies are in this for money, purely. Because, again, this is another topic we talk about all the time, not to go too far left, but each one of these sanctioning bodies has 4 champions at the same weight. There's a regular champion, an interim champion, a super champion, a champion in recess. Like, they've ranked dead people, literally. I know there was talk a couple of years ago with, I think it was the WBA and the IBF were talking about cleaning up some of their belts at some point. I have yet to see it. I mean, I would love for us to go back to an era where there were 1, maybe 2 belts, right? Get 1 belt that mattered.
I have no issue with the 4 belt system because I think it creates a level of there's a certain amount of challenge in becoming the best guy where you are going to have to fight other guys who have a claim to being the best guy. I think where it becomes a problem is when making the money becomes the priority and not making the best fights to make the best.
But it's not even that anymore, Dakota. Like, bro,
that's what I'm saying.
It's not even the 4 belt era. It's the 16 belt era.
Yeah.
Because there's 4 belts per sanctioning body. There's 4 sanctioning bodies for every shit. It's the 16 belt era. You know what I mean? They're literally right now, technically speaking, there can be 16 world champions in 1 weight class.
Yeah, it's definitely an odd time as far as world titles go, and if that's a fight that's legitimately on the table, listen, I think that they're gonna get enough pushback on that it won't get sanctioned, but you never know, man. I mean, you really never know. Nibs, this has been a fantastic episode, my friend. Is there anything else you want to plug? Anything you want to bring up before we wrap this one up?
Nah, man, I think we've covered it. We got the the pound for pound list. Everybody go check us out at itr.com. We've already debated that Chicago is the best pizza. Hit us in the comments. Again, like you said, hit us in the comments. Who do you think is number 1? Chi-Town, New York, and of course, always here at Catch and Counter. As always, go support your local boxing. Again, it's not necessarily just for the boxers. I want to point this out. My man here, he works in the industry on the back end of it, and in the entertainment industry. And for people who work the events, right? A lot of these guys aren't making, most of them aren't making hundreds, thousands of dollars, but they depend on these local events that are happening to be able to feed their families. They depend on the local economy that's coming to the concessions. They depend on the local economy that's coming to the hotel rooms and things like that to get you entertainment, not just the guys that are stepping into the ring. So when we say support local boxing, we're not just saying support local boxers. We're saying support local boxing, the entire event, because it helps everyone in your community, helps everyone locally. You know what I mean? I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you're not supporting local boxing, then you shouldn't be watching boxing at all because you're supporting yourselves. There it is. Fuck with us or fuck off.
Well said, as always, my brother. Great show.